In a small town surrounded by lush green mountains lived a professor named Professor William Carter. He was known as a wise and insightful figure. Every class he taught always left a deep impression on his students, changing their perspective on life. One bright afternoon, Professor Carter decided to give a lesson different from usual. After all his students had gathered in the classroom, he lifted a glass of water and asked with a meaningful smile, "How heavy do you think this glass is?" The students looked at each other before some of them finally responded to 100 grams. 300 grams, 350 grams. Professor Carter smiled gently and said, "Your answers are interesting. However, I don't actually know the exact weight of this glass either." The students fell silent, puzzled by the direction of the professor's question. He then continued, "Now, if I hold this glass for 2 minutes, will anything happen?" The students answered in unison, "No, Professor." "That's right," said Professor Carter. "Now, what if I keep holding it for 2 hours?" A student in the front row answered, "Your hand will start to hurt, and your muscles will cramp." Professor Carter nodded. "Good. Now, what if I hold this glass all day?" Another student quickly said, "Your hand will go numb, your muscles will tense up, and you might not even be able to move it anymore. You might need to see a doctor." The professor smiled meaningfully. "Why is that? Has the weight of the glass changed?" "No, Professor," the students answered in unison. Professor Carter then asked, "So, what should I do to prevent this glass from hurting me?" One student confidently said, "Put the glass down, Prof." "Exactly," Professor Carter exclaimed. "The same goes for the problems in our lives. If we think about a problem for a short while, it's not a big issue. But if we dwell on it for hours, it will slowly start to hurt us. If we carry it all day long, that problem could paralyze us." The students fell silent, reflecting on the meaning behind those words. "Just like this glass," Professor Carter continued, "the problems in our lives won't become lighter just because we keep thinking about them. However, we can manage them by taking real steps to solve them. Sometimes we just need to put them down for a moment, take a deep breath and find the best way to deal with them. The burdens of life won't get lighter by worrying about them, but by having the courage to face them." One student, who had been silent the whole time, finally raised his hand and asked, "But Professor, what if the problem we face is too big and can't be solved right away?" Professor Carter smiled warmly. "That's a great question. If your problem is too big, break it down into smaller parts. Tackle each one with focus and perseverance. Remember, even the tallest mountain can be climbed step by step." He then added, "And don't hesitate to ask for help. Sometimes we are too hard on ourselves, thinking we have to solve everything alone. But just like carrying a heavy load, sharing it with others can lighten the journey. Family, friends, teachers, or anyone who can support you, don't be afraid to lean on them." The students' faces began to brighten. They realized that constant worry and anxiety without action were just unnecessary burdens. Professor Carter had given them a life lesson they would never forget. That day, they all went home with a new understanding of how to face life's challenges, not by endlessly worrying about them, but by taking real action, letting go of unnecessary burdens, and moving forward with confidence and hope. And most importantly, they learned that in the journey of life, it's okay to pause, take a deep breath and seek support before stepping forward again toward their goals.